Hello and welcome back to another edition of my Mass Effect multiplayer guide. Today we're going to have a look at the Shadow. I decided to do a PUG with one guy I've played with a few times. We had two people who ended up rage quitting in all likelihood. It made the match a little bit more difficult, at least prolonged it unnecessarily. Very interesting how people do that. But the Shadow, of course, is an N7 class. It will be the first of my N7 guides, assuming I make others. It's also the first infiltrator that I enjoy playing to some extent, and mostly because of the sword. Very, very useful class. Let me run through the build quite quickly. At the end of the video, you'll actually see the screen, just to get an idea of exactly what I'm talking about. Tactical cloak. We definitely go for duration, which I'll get into in a second. Then we go for melee damage to enhance the sword damage, and then we go for bonus power, so you can do multiple shadow strikes, one after another. I totally skipped Electric Slash. This is a melee build only. Primarily use it for gold. It can be used on platinum, but I would never do a public game on platinum, not after all my experiences. Shadow Strike, bread and butter power. Go for damage in the first evolution. 4, electric damage. The damage over time is very useful. Take that. Finally, I would strongly urge people to take Shield Drain. It's very, very useful for a number of reasons. That's what I go for. N7 Shadow. Shadow Strike, in contrast to what developers have said, is affected by power damage, so I would go damage and capacity, power damage, and I like going weapon damage for that extra 10%. Finally, in Sword Mastery, I go for sword damage, then I go for shield recharge and speed. That gives you another 10%. That gives you a flat 20% speed bonus. That means you're as fast as a Drell at the base level. And then finally, I choose shield damage. Why? Because most of the targets you take out with Shadow Strike are, or with your sword for that matter, are shielded or barrier targets in the case of Phantoms. So no mystery there. So what do we have here? We have the lovely ruined map of London. It's a gold public match pretty much. I like London a lot. It brings back old memories. As you see in the beginning, we started with 4, then it became 3, then became 2. This guy I played with sometimes. The match got prolonged because of that, but the point of this is just to show that the Shadow can be quite useful in that sense. I was doing all sorts of things, rezzing people, killing targets. Let's start off with what the Shadow does. What am I primarily doing here? What you should probably be doing if you're doing a melee-focused Shadow build is to make copious use of Shadow Strike. It is the bread and butter power, of course, in conjunction with Tactical Cloak. Tactical Cloak is very useful as well because it has the melee built into it if you choose that evolution, which will enhance Shadow Strike. The fire 1 power before Cloak wears off allows you to do multiple Shadow Strikes. The advantage of Shadow Strike, of course, is that you're better than a Vanguard at charging at things. You can literally reach across the map in some cases and Shadow Strike into areas. And not only that, it also has an incredible value as a get me the hell out of here power, essentially. Now, speaking of Shadow Strike, the reason why I strongly urge people to take, well, the damage over time is just useful. It kills enemies and gives you time to escape. But let's talk about the energy drain versus that extra 50% damage. Now you might think, oh yeah, that extra damage, you'll be able to kill enemies outright. Yes and no, it really depends on whether you're playing gold or platinum. But that energy drain keeps you alive, and in my opinion, be it gold, which is significantly easier than platinum, admittedly, but survivability is much more important than that outright damage. You can still more or less outright kill enemies with Shadow Strike. You don't need that extra damage. On the other hand, energy drain will keep you alive in very many cases. In addition to that, for 4 seconds after that, you have a 4-second long 15% increase to movement speed. Add that to your already very quick movement of 20% if you chose that correctly in the passive, and you are potentially the fastest character in the game. I was using an Adrenaline Mod 3 in this gameplay, so I was even faster. This speed combined with energy drain as the final evolution, it gives your Shadow an incredible amount of survivability. I would say in some ways it's the most, don't quote me on this, survivable infiltrator there is, because of the speed you get from both the power and the passive, but also because of the energy drain. So you're really just you're a speed demon, and that lets you do all sorts of things. Objectives. I easily was able to revive fallen teammates from across the map, and at the same time take out numerous targets one after another, and so on and so forth. Very, very useful. So I would urge you, but in my eyes, the survivability is much more important, to choose that as an evolution. So that's Shadow Strike. It allows you to reach anywhere, as long as you can kind of see the outline of a target, that sort of orange lining, to attack that target. Let's a little bit more on Shadow Strike. What not to Shadow Strike? It's probably not the best idea to Shadow Strike Atlases. Even if you have maximum damage, it's not going to do a whole lot. More to the point, it's a pointless waste. Unless you're trying to survive and you need to recharge your shields, then it is a useful evolution. You're not going to take Atlases out with Shadow Strike, though. I would avoid Brutes. Ravagers, I would say never, ever, ever Shadow Strike a Ravager. If it breaks and you're stuck in the goo, you will die. Remember, Ravagers don't have shields or barriers, so there's nothing to drain. Banshees, probably very, very problematic. Geth are probably the best targets for Shadow Striking. They have tons of shields. They don't instant kill, and so on and so forth. Phantoms are perfectly viable targets, even on Platinum. But on Platinum, they seem to anticipate your Shadow Strike a lot more. They seem to sometimes, in midway, Shadow Strike Sword Slash you, and so it's a little bit trickier. But they are certainly fair game. You can use Phantom, attack Phantoms with Shadow Strike numerous times. A couple of tips about Shadow Strike, finally. If you see a Phantom meleeing another teammate, never Shadow Strike that Phantom. He will, in all likelihood, instant kill you in mid-Shadow Strike. Not all the time, but it has happened to me often enough. I also make a few mistakes, as in the Shadow Strike into a mass of 3 Phantoms and Atlases towards the end of the video. Not the smartest move. Don't do that. My suggestion is to pick out and pick off singular targets, be a Phantoms, Nemesis. If it's 2, I wouldn't say 2 Phantoms, but certainly, well, you could do 2 Phantoms, but any normal troops or what have you, 2, that's fine as well. The advantage, of course, of having the firepower before Cloak wears off is that you can, if need be, continue to stay in Cloak and run to cover, if that's the case. So that's Shadow Strike.
Where do you like
apart from that, you do have a powerful sword melee. I like doing it sometimes, but it's more for fun than anything else. You need to make sure that the coast is clear, so to speak, because if you get stuck in the melee animation, it's easy to, well, get killed or shot or something. There's no way. It's not very quick, put it that way. But one thing I do want to talk about with regards to Cloak is in reference to, well, it's not a new nerf anymore. It's a choice between duration or actual damage. The choice between 40% damage bonus or 80%. With the possible exception of the GI, because he has such a massive damage output, I would, regardless of what kind of infiltrator you choose to use, always choose duration. In the Shadow, it would be, in my opinion, foolish not to choose duration. And you see this in numerous cases in the video. Shadow, the 11 plus second duration of my Cloak allows me to run across the map undetected, revive fallen comrades. When that I thought it was a fairly difficult hack objective when we're only 2 people and low on resources towards the end, that duration Cloak allowed me to finish the hack objective with much fewer problems than there would have been if I had chosen damage. Not only that, it allows you to set up Shadow Strikes and so on and so forth. Duration will, in my opinion, in most cases, 75–80% of the time, give you much more utility to your character, much more survivability. So definitely go duration. And the Shadow not taking duration is very, very foolish, in my opinion. It will really be beneficial. The extra damage is nice, but it's not worth it compared to all the other things you can do if you have a much longer Cloak. Remember, duration Cloak is twice as long as the damage Cloak, which is significant. So, let's talk a little bit about Loadout. Of course, a Shadow is basically a melee character, and in taking that into consideration, you want to use melee enhancing equipment. So at this current moment in time, due to the nerf DLC, even assault rifles have melee equipment. So they have this Omni bayonet. I'm not using the assault rifle, I'm using the beloved Piranha. I won't make any commentary on the Piranha. I do use it on the Shadow on some casters and what have you, but I won't offer my opinion on the Piranha here. Needless to say, it's quite lightweight, it has a very good damage output, and I like to put on the shotgun blade attachment for that 25% extra damage. In terms of gear, it depends on what you have access to. I happen to have the level 5 Berserker gear, which gives me 10% shotgun damage, but also 10% melee damage, which synergizes very, very well with the Shadow. Alternatively, you could choose pure damage, melee damage for hydraulic joints, that's 15% maxed out, or the Juggernaut shield, which gives you a 20% shield bonus, but also a 10% melee bonus in addition to that. They're all fine choices, it's up to you. Consumables, if you have melee or strength enhancer consumables, do use them. And if I don't have them, I won't use them. But of course, if you have an adrenaline mod, be it 1, 2, or 3, do use it. It'll make her even faster and much, much more effective. You'll be able to cap objectives. You'll be able to do all sorts of things. And yeah, that's pretty much it with regards to the loadout. So either choose a pistol, an assault rifle, or a shotgun, since all those at this current moment in time have blade attachments which will give you 25% bonus to your melee damage. That is pretty much it. I will talk briefly now about the differences between Platinum and Gold. The Shadow is not the most effective character on Platinum. She can hold her own if she's played properly. But the reason why she's not the most effective is the massive amount of boss units. The Shadow excels at taking out single trash mob units, but even phantoms as well. You do, if you play Cerberus, have numerous phantoms in Platinum, of course, and so she's fair game for that, although they are harder to take down. They sync kill you more often, and they seem to anticipate Shadow Strike a lot more often. I can't explain it, it's just something I've observed. They're much more aggressive, and so you have to be much more careful. Platinum, even Gold, requires a fair degree of situational awareness. I made a few mistakes during the gameplay. You don't want to Shadow Strike or charge into a situation that you can't get out of. Situations such as crunched in, you can't move, you can't flip roll out of the situation. Cramped quarters, avoid those when you're Shadow Striking if possible, unless you have a surefire plan before you're Shadow Striking. Platinum, well, unfortunately Platinum, because there's so many boss units, when I do play Platinum with the Shadow, I tend to still concentrate on eliminating single targets, mostly Phantoms, Centurions, Marauders, whatever. They are dangerous, of course. Marauders are very dangerous, and so I still feel I'm contributing my part. But of course, your shotgun becomes more of your best friend as you're using it to take out Brutes, Ravagers, Atlases, Banshees, and so on and so forth. So you are more limited, particularly with a melee build. Like I said, I'm not going to talk about Electric Slash. That it's for the simple reason it doesn't appeal to me. I don't find it very fun. So there are plenty of other guides and I think builds for the Electric Slash oriented Shadow, but that's just not my style. So you need finally, you need a great deal of situational awareness. Know when to Shadow Strike and when not to. More importantly, know when to follow up with a Sword Slash or a Shadow Strike after the first one, and when not to. There's situations when you just want to Shadow Strike and get the hell out of there. Happens in the video as well. So let's summarize. We have Duration Cloak being very, very important for all infiltrators, except the GI possibly, but especially for the Shadow. Shadow Strike takes the damage over time. You'll thank yourself for doing that, and in particular, take a energy drain. It's very, very useful. The speed enhancement is invaluable. More importantly, it will keep you alive. The bottom, for the passive, take the first damage evolution, and the speed enhancement will be really, really beneficial. And it's up to you whether you want to take armor or electric sword. Reason being, how many armor targets you can do for fun, or you can actually attack with your sword. You can just run up to a brute and start hacking away with it with your sword. You could do that. It's happened a couple of times when I built this class differently, and sometimes it works, but you're probably not going to do that often. You want to kill those kinds of targets with your shotgun. Remember, don't get too involved with the melee stuff. Anyway, that's the guide. Those are the basics of gameplay. Like I said, this is pretty much a PUG Gold match turned into a bit of a chore more than anything else, because all those people rage quit. We still got full extraction from the credits, so it was their loss. But I guess that's the way the chips fall. And then check out the end of the video for exactly what I'm talking about with regards to the build. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to your comments and your likes. Take care.